We are going to use audience response software during this presentation. Would you mind helping me pass this stuff out, son?
For those of you coming late, please make sure you fill out the pre-test before the training.
Here, I'll give you one. Lisa, would you mind helping me? Oh, thank you.
Pass them out?
Yeah, if you don't mind. And I'm just going to put... I think that, yeah, any of them are fine. Most of you are here because in some way you spend a lot of time in contact with young people. And we're going to talk a little bit, let's see, about teen pregnancy, but mostly about emergency contraception. So again, I encourage you to make this as interactive as you would like and to ask questions as I go along. One of the reasons that emergency contraception has been heralded as such an advance in women's health care and in adolescent care is its ability to prevent unintended pregnancy. This gives you an idea just visually of how South Carolina ranks in terms of teen pregnancy rates across the country. So just to orient you, the darkest states have the highest teen pregnancy rates. South Carolina is 79 per 1,000. The 165, which is the highest, was DC. That was really kind of an aberration. Most of the ones in the highest bracket were somewhere between 79 and 89 teen pregnancies per 1,000 teens in that state. So you can see that South Carolina, along with Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and Nevada, and I think Delaware, fall into the worst quartile of states in terms of how we're doing with the rate of teen pregnancy. Teen pregnancy, I don't really have to tell you guys, has a huge impact for teens. So just medically, if you become pregnant when you're a teen, your pregnancy is more complicated. Specifically, they're more likely to give birth early or have a premature baby, and their babies are more likely to be low birth weight or very low birth weight. And then socially, teens who become pregnant or become moms also are less likely to finish their education. They are more likely to live in poverty, and their children are more likely to become teen moms. So from a public health perspective, we stand to gain a lot if we're able to delay pregnancy until a teen is ready or prevent unintended pregnancy. That's not to suggest that a teen pregnancy can't be happy and healthy. I know we all in this room probably invest a lot of time in making that happen too. But when we're thinking about emergency contraception, our opportunity is to hopefully prevent unintended pregnancy for teens. All right, this is sort of a test question to make sure that your little clickers are working. So the first question is, EC is used after unprotected intercourse, true or false? You can either press 1 or 2, and okay, it looks like it's working. Awesome. Sometimes it can be a little finicky as newfangled things are. Okay, so most of you felt that this was true, and that is correct. Emergency contraception, or EC, I'm going to use the term EC mostly, but just to be sure we're all on the same page, that means emergency contraception, and that is a post-coital, meaning after sex, method of birth control. It is not as effective as using things prior to having intercourse, but it is a great method for backup, meaning it's much more effective than doing nothing at all if you find yourself in the situation that you've had sex without protection and you're worried that you could become pregnant. Another question, a student could use, or a teen could use EC in each of the following situations except someone who is on birth control pills but knows that they missed a couple of pills this month, someone who used a condom but it broke, someone who has had a positive pregnancy test after they had sex, someone who is forced to have sex, or someone who had sex without protection. Which of all of these are acceptable uses for EC except which one? Awesome. So this was one of the questions on the pretest, but reasons that someone might use EC are numerous. The first being that they just found themselves in a situation where they were using no protection when they had sex. I would say more commonly it's someone who, and they're wondering what's going to happen, was trying to use protection but thinks that it might have failed. For example, someone who's using birth control pills but knows that they don't remember to take it every day. And that is the majority of people in the U.S. who are using birth control pills. So in one study at least, adult women on average miss 3 pills a month. So that is probably higher in teens and adolescents. So this is one of the reasons that IUDs and Implanon are really coming forward as ideal methods, because it's so hard to remember to take a pill every day. But that's one instance where we find that emergency contraception is useful. If someone did use a condom but they think that it broke or they know that it broke, if someone is not sure that the guy got the condom on in time, that's also a time when I really encourage teens, and anyone for that matter, to use EC. And sometimes you can tell that the condom slipped or leaked or you're worried about that. That would be a time to consider it. There's some cases, especially with teens who maybe have less background knowledge and less negotiation skill, where they're actually just not sure if the guy was protected or not. And in cases of doubt, I definitely recommend it. And then, of course, it's become standard of care for any victim who has been forced to have sex to offer them emergency contraception if they want it. It's not designed to be used if you know that you're already pregnant, if you've already had a positive pregnancy test. It will not harm a pregnancy if you're already pregnant, but it won't be effective. And that's a time to refer them for options counseling, not to try EC. Which of the following cannot be used as emergency contraception? So all of these are actually methods of EC except for regular birth control pills, the copper IUD, the Depo-Provera injection, Plan B, or a prescription medication called Ella. So this was definitely a harder question. All of these actually are methods of emergency contraception except for Depo-Provera. We're going to spend most of our time talking about Plan B because it's non-prescription for a lot of people and it's easily accessible. But actually, Plan B, there's a new prescription medication called Ella that is a very effective emergency contraceptive. The copper IUD is what I call the old kid on the block. It's actually been available for EC for a long time, and not surprisingly, it has caveats to use, but it is the most effective. It's really effective, 99% effective at preventing a pregnancy if inserted within 5 days of unprotected sex. And then we can actually also use regular birth control pills in a modified fashion. So I'm going to spend most of the time making sure you understand Plan B. But at the end, I'm going to be sure that we cover the other 3 possibilities, just so that you feel like you're leaving with accurate information about those options. For just a very brief history, I mentioned that you can use regular birth control pills. So Dr. Yezpi, I think I'm saying it right, in the 1970s came up with this concept that you can actually use multiple regular birth control pills from your pack to prevent ovulation. And this is now known as the Yezpi method. And that was all that we had for a really long period of time. In 1999, Plan B was finally approved by the FDA and packaged as an emergency contraceptive. And a decade later, in 2009, the FDA gave us permission to use Plan B behind the counter, and we'll talk about that. In 2010, the new medication, Ella, was approved in the United States. It's actually been around in Europe for about 10 years, so it's not really new, but it is new in the US. So, true or false to this question? Pills in Plan B are stronger doses of regular birth control pills. True or false? So 88% of you thought that that was true, and that is correct. So when we think about regular birth control pills versus Plan B, regular birth control pills, for the most part, have both estrogen and progesterone, two hormones that are very similar to the hormones naturally found in our bodies, and they work by preventing ovulation. Plan B is a higher dose of the progesterone. So Plan B doesn't have any estrogen, so it doesn't have exactly the same thing. It's not exactly the same thing as the regular birth control pill, but it is a higher dose of one of the hormones found in birth control pills. That's an important distinction because there's so much confusion in the press and in the public about emergency contraception or Plan B with the abortion pill. So I just like to be sure that people understand they're actually different, and Plan B is very similar to regular birth control pills. It's not similar to the abortion pill. So there's also now so many options of Plan B. So as to avoid confusion, I want to be sure that everyone kind of understands what is available in the pharmacy when you send someone. These are basically all the same thing. Plan B at the top was the original product that came out, and it has two pills. You can see the two pills there in the picture. And originally they told us to take them 12 hours apart. So if you got a package of Plan B, you were supposed to take the first pill, wait 12 hours, and take the second pill. Lots of science said it's okay and actually as effective, if not more effective, to go ahead and take both pills together. Plan B has been around for a while, so it's now available in generic form. Next choice is the generic version of Plan B. They're basically exactly the same. So it'll come as two pills, but you take them both together. And then Plan B one step. Yes, it's the same status. Yes, so it is available as a generic form now and has been actually for a few years. That's not as well known. Because what's marketed now is Plan B one step, which is their new and improved version where they just put the two pills together. So Plan B one step comes as the same dose but in one pill. And of course they can charge full price for it because it's new and it's still on patent. It has no generic version yet.
Any idea what next choice costs?
The last time I checked, and to be fair, it's been a couple years, the cheapest place in town to get it was Planned Parenthood, and it was $25. It's $35 now. And I don't know for sure how that still compares to generic versions. Yeah. So when I called Publix recently to compare Ella and Plan B, they were both about 54 and 57. So somewhere in there, and that probably varies a little from place to place.
When sets are leaving, if you want to pick up one of these, part of what's in the back of these includes pharmacies that carry these too. So this is put out by the Contraception Protection Council, and there are more of them, and if you want more.
Okay, another true-false question. I think I may have already answered this one, but EC is a type of abortion, true or false? Oh, you don't have a clicker, do you? So, excellent. 93% of you are correct. EC is not a type of abortion, but there is so much confusion about that. So how does Plan B work? I hope this is not insultingly oversimplified, but I'm just going to review kind of basic biology before I talk about how it works. So this is a picture of the uterus, the fallopian tube, and the ovary. Every month, the ovary makes eggs, and one of them becomes the superstar egg and gets ready for ovulation. It spits the egg out into the fallopian tube, which is what's happening right there. If there are sperm hanging around, the egg gets fertilized, and it spends the next 4 or 5 days traveling down the tube, and then it eventually arrives in the uterus, where it implants on the endometrium, which is the uterine lining. So the way that EC works to prevent this from happening is actually by preventing ovulation from happening. So the progesterone hormone has an impact on the body to actually prevent ovulation. What that means is it's not going to be effective if someone takes it 12 hours after they ovulated. And that's why it's not as effective as using something prior to sex that prevents ovulation, because the timing of it is important. So when we think about whether or not Plan B causes abortion, abortion methods act here. After a pregnancy has implanted and begun to grow, the abortion pill would have an impact right there. So Plan B does not cause an abortion, and the other forms of EC are similar.
I was at this mission fair this weekend, and I happened to see some research out there talking about how EC is comparable to abortion. So apparently some groups are promoting that incorrect information.
Well, I have tried to engage people in that discussion to understand that belief, and I don't really understand how they've come to that conclusion. It's not a scientific argument, but most people who are in that camp put contraception of all kinds, including the birth control pill, EC, and abortion in the same category, and they're just kind of anti-totally. But scientifically, like I was just showing, EC works much earlier than that. It works to prevent fertilization. So long before an abortion would even be possible, EC has its action. And fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, if you're already pregnant, it's not going to work. So this is a new question. A 17-year-old male student asks you for Plan B. You advise him to go to a local pharmacy, to have his girlfriend go to a local pharmacy, or to have his girlfriend get a prescription from her doctor. There's some abstainers on that one. This was a tough one, and I will admit that this is something I learned in preparing for y'all's presentation, because I don't take care of men on a routine basis. This was not something that I knew. But when we think about who can get Plan B without a prescription, anyone now who's 17 years or older, and this includes men, can walk in without a prescription and obtain Plan B. That means that any women who are 16 or younger must have a prescription. So could not get it no matter what without a prescription. We talked a little bit about the cost, and I always like to make this point because it is wonderful that we can now, for some people, get it without a prescription for anyone 17 and older. But there's a large group of people who have, say, Medicaid or other types of insurance that actually cover Plan B or types of emergency contraception. And for those people, if they have a prescription, it will be more affordable, most likely, depending on the pharmacy, if they're not paying out of pocket. No. So, yep. No. They cannot get a prescription because you would have, it's kind of like buying cold medicine. You don't necessarily have to take it yourself. You could go in and buy it for someone in your family, for example. But if you have a prescription, it's designated for you. Yeah, so it is not for men to take, but they can obtain it in the pharmacy. I don't think anything bad would happen to them, but most men don't want to play around with female hormones. Yeah. So I also want to make the point that it is behind the counter. So that's an important distinction. Something like Advil would be considered over the counter, where you can just walk into a store and it'll be on the shelf and you can pick it up yourself and walk out and pay for it and buy it. Behind the counter means you actually have to still go to the counter and ask someone at the pharmacy for it, because they keep it. They probably make you sign something, show your license. I'm not exactly sure. Probably like Sudafed now. So it's behind. So I make sure to tell everyone, especially young women, that, because I think, kind of like buying condoms, people feel a little skittish when they're going in and they're kind of embarrassed. And so if they look around on the shelf and they don't see it, they're probably going to hightail it out of there. So I try to have that conversation up front with them, like, hey, this is awesome, it's available to you, but you actually do have to go up and ask for it. So. And permission is not required. That was one of the questions on the pretest as well.